Okay. Um, yeah, we can start. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the other areas of data management today. So more we're gonna focus more on study, startup, conduct, and closeout. What are the different steps that we follow, or what are the different activities that we follow during each step. Okay, before I share my screen, I'll just give an overview of what we're going to talk about it. So I hope you all gone through the website that I've given the last week to just understand the get an idea that what I'm talking. So like let's say that you all completed your masters and bachelors. Okay, so I did my bachelor's in Bangalore. Um, then I've done my master's in one of the top medical colleges in India. So what happened when I was doing my internship in my bachelor's, I saw this medical college has requested or asked for applications for the certain courses. I mean, certain not course, certain departments. Then what happened? Like I was going to complete my bachelor's. Then I've applied for it, and during the application process, so I had to submit some documents. Then I've been so there was an entrance test. So for this entrance test, almost 400, 500 people had come, and out of that, again, they've arranged an interview for it, like arranged interview, and where there were almost 6 to 7 panels members were there, and there were interviews. So I submit my documents. Then after some time, I mean, after a few days, they've selected me, and then I just went to submit all my documents. Actually, I submit my originals. Then I had to pay some fee. That's all. Then they've given the date for a college join, like an orientation, everything, blah blah, everything. So there was orientation there, everything, and so I've studied there for 2 years. Then so I had an exams which I've completed there, and I got my marks, and that's so the process. The reason I try to explain all these, that I just wanted to explain how we divide the education, or how we divide our the college life. So as part of the startup, as part of the our studies start, we tend to write, we are supposed to write some entrance tests, we are supposed to write some exams. Then we get a seat, our application has been picked, and then we provide our documents, then college fees. Then once college start, we go for classes. That's a conduct. So that means the college is being conducted. So you're done with our study start process, where you provided all your documents and everything. And closeout is nothing but during your final exams, where you pass and you get your certificates of the particular master's or bachelor's. So these are three steps, right? So in every process, especially in a clinical trial, these three steps are very important. Even for every clinical trial, we divide any study into startup, conduct, closeout. Let's say I've recently got one of the project, so I asked my manager, so just okay, hey, is this is startup phase or conduct phase, or is in a closeout phase? They say it's in a conduct phase. Some projects will be in the study startup, like the projects that I'm working on. So that every clinical trial study is divided into three steps. Why? Because Setting up a clinical trial study is not very easy. Just because I have some money doesn't mean, or just because the sponsor have some money doesn't mean that they can just go and start a clinical trial in any hospital or any 10 hospital, 15 hospital in that country. No, they can't do that. So during the study startup process, hundred of members work in each company, like companies like IQVIA, Pfizer, Eli Lilly, or CRO company like IQVIA, Thermo Fisher Scientific, or Worldwide Clinical, Premier, and these seniors, these companies will have many people in the study startup, like study startup coordinator, study startup assistant, study startup manager, regulatory team. So these are the teams we regularly see in LinkedIn. So these teams mainly work on the study startup process. That means to set up any clinical trials, they work on certain documents, certain protocols, certain documents to apply for the regulatory authority to get an approval. Right. So in order to understand that how the clinical trial process, I've given the website. So in the website, like www.icgcp.net, you might have got an idea. Okay, so now let me yeah, take this note. You all can see my screen, right? Okay, if you can see my screen, please take this note as it is, like the same flow chart. Take note of it. So there are three steps. The first step is the study setup process or startup process. Thank you. Thank you for the confirmation. Take note of it. I'll explain one by. So what we do throughout our session, clinical data management sessions, we're gonna talk about each and every step. So I'm not just showing one flow chart. That is the reason that I'm asking you all to write, because each step that is given here, each step that is mentioned here is each session, one session for us. Like we're not talking about very clearly and very everything about all these parameters. Please take note of it. Just um, not wait or not miss. Most of the times when you go for an interviews as a fresher, they might ask you like what are the steps that are involved in the study setup process or study startup process. Most of the times we call it as the startup, not um, setup process. Okay, so I hope you all written. Now let me explain you and all that. Whenever, okay, yeah. So now, if you look into this process, that the protocol overview, can someone tell me if you know what is the protocol? Hmm? Can someone tell me what is the protocol? If you have any, at least if try to unmute and talk, guys. It's important that you develop your communications. You might be very good at communication, but when you talk these kind of terms, you might miss something. That's the reason. So do you all know what is the protocol? Like what is this even meaning? Defined set of rules in the documents. Okay. Blueprint for research study, proposal of the study design, roadmap to complete a research. Mhm. So what it contains? Fine. What it contains? Study plan. Mhm. Protocol is a study design methodology plan of research study. My question, next question is, what are the contents of the protocol? Yes, you have an idea what is the protocol. You know what is the document, but what it contains. Why do you say it's a study plan, or why do you say it's a methodology? Why do you say it's a blueprint for the research study? Okay, inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria of the methodology, need for the study, aim, purpose of the study, hypothesis, aims, objectives, methodology, okay, sample size, data management, okay, objective study design methodology, statistical consideration, very good, yes. So the protocol is nothing but a document which contains that how a clinical trial should be conducted. So it is the document that we get an approval. It's a protocol, that's a document where come on, including site sample sites, anything else. How many of you all gone through the ICH GCP principles? It's very important. The reason that I ask you is very important. Have you all gone through the ICH GCP principles? That's okay if you're not gone through. Just okay. So if you're not gone through the principles that I've given, again, I'm just placing it here. Okay. So now, this website contains principles. The other day, I've asked you all to read the other day I asked you all to read about the definitions of it. But now, for the next in the next session, I mean, for the next session, I want you all to read the principles. Any interview go, okay? Any interview go, like um, clinical research, regulatory affairs, data management, pharmacovigilance, any interview go. These principles, without these principles, no one, okay, okay, no one will complete the interview. Okay, so in order to understand, that, how do you prepare for interest? Many of the times, what happens that you all need to prepare well for the interviews, like especially the places where they ask you about more about the principles, that how a trial will be conducted, right? So whenever they say, someone says that on what basis, on the basis of the principles. The principles are nothing but how the trial will be conducted according to the what, according to the ICGC principles. For example, one of the principle is about the protocol. A protocol should contain about everything detailed about detailed about the particular research. But one thing that you need to understand here, that it will be approved by the regulatory authorities, right? So whenever you conduct any clinical trial, or whenever you work on any clinical trial, Without these principles, no one can conduct it. So which means these are approved by internationally, right? So now the next thing is that the protocol, as I mentioned, that the contains all the information about the particular research. So now, whenever we say, is it approved by the regulatory authority? Yes, it has to be approved by the ethics committees. Why? Because this is something that we follow to conduct the clinical trial. So when I'm following this document to conduct my clinical trial, that means it should have a proper ethical information. It should have a proper information that is according to the particular regulations of the particular country, because every country has their own regulations the way it conduct the clinical trial. That's one thing. And the second thing is that whenever we follow the protocol, it has to contain all ethical related information also. So that means we will ensure that we provide all the information regarding to the particular study, like inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, methodology, objectives, like why I'm doing this clinical trial, statistical consideration, like why this number of patients that I'm taking, and the reason for conducting this clinical trial, and the systems that we're going to use, and the patients, that why only these patients have been collected, the reason for the only males to conduct, or reason for females to conduct a particular clinical trial. So we're gonna involve, or we're gonna have all this information in the protocol. That is the reason protocol serves as the heart for the particular clinical trial. Now, so, but why do we have to review this document when I'm starting the document for first, or why I'm so interested in this document when I'm talking about the data management? Why we have to talk so much about this process? Because for every team, whether it's a pharmacovigilance, whether it's a regulatory team, or whether any team that you talk about, the protocol is the primary document that we follow or we review. So, which means when you review the protocol, you will understand the completely. You'll understand complete about. One second, guys. So you'll understand completely about the particular trial, particular requirement, particular need of it. And based on this understanding on the protocol, based on this process, we will have a KOM, nothing but kickoff meeting with the clients. So especially when the CRO works, when CRO get the contracts from the sponsor companies as part of the contract. So we're gonna explain them that what will be our steps in order to collect the true data, in order to set up the study for the data management, in order to collect the data from the different hospitals, in order to collect the data that is according to the regulatory requirement, how we are going to cover the study. Why? Because the data management process purely based on the data management specifications, or anything that will be based on the protocol only, because as I mentioned, protocol is hard for the particular trial. So whatever the data that I'm collecting, that should be according to the protocol. So when I'm following a protocol to conduct a clinical trial, that means the outcome of the data also will be according to the protocol. Clear, right? So that means whenever I'm doing any if some information regarding the study was missed in a protocol, and we any added information during the study ethical information committee. See, ideally, we don't miss, or we don't forget some information, because whenever we prepare any protocol, we send it for the regulatory approvals. So, especially for IRB, ISC at each hospital. Let's say that you um, um, You did not tell that why calcium or the potassium important for this study to be done, because the regulatory authorities or IRB or IEC will not allow simply to conduct every test. Like let's say that you are conducting a clinical trial in diabetes, and you are asking patients to conduct MRI scan in every visit. No, they'll ask a question: what is the reason behind the MRI scan for each visit? Or what is the MRI, what is the rationale between the diabetes and MRI scans? Why are you asking the patients? Or let's say that you are conducting a clinical trial on diabetes, and you are asking the patient to do uh, hepatitis C in every visit. No, how is it even possible? How? No, you can't do that. There is no requirement of conducting the hepatitis C in every visit. So until unless there is a rationale, there is a reason behind it. So let's say that if you really miss any information, if you really miss some information, that you want to edit, yes, after approving the let's say protocol has been approved, now you can amend your protocol, you can make updates. So that term we call as the amendment. Okay, yes, you can do it. Good question. Yeah, great. Just a second. Now, once we explain the study, how we are going to set up our study. So now, whenever we need a plan, like let's say that you are building a house. Now, you find a place for your house to build a house. I mean, to build a house, and now you connect, I mean, talk to the builders or some teams like who build a house. So now whomever you given the contract, the first thing what they do, they will they will have a um they will have a the data management plan, nothing but the plan that explains how we are going to do the process, the plan that contains of how the trial will be conducted for the data management perspective. Simple. So now this document, guys, this document is very important. Okay, so whenever you go for an go for interviews, uh, they will ask what is the data management plan that contains all the information on how the data will be collected, who are the people that are involved, and what are the process, the systems. And the coming sessions, the coming sessions, we will be looking into this process. So don't worry, so we're going to review all these steps of document management plan. Now, so we're gonna design the database. The database is nothing but where we store particular data, right? So we need to have database where we're gonna store all the information that is related to particular document process. Now, now every data that you collect should have the place to store it. Now, so then we're going to write the something called specifications. So specification means, like let's say that how do you want your data, and how's your data to be seen, or how much data that you want to collect, and what is the data transfer agreement. So they will have every process explained in the specification. Let's say that um, like let's say mm, okay, now let's say you have some plans to buy a mobile, and it says that you go to the shop, and they ask like what is your budget, And you say like 30,000. So I want in that within in 30,000, I want to have this specification such as um, um, it should have a 16 GB RAM, and it should have two cameras at the front, three cameras, or it should have this much size. So that are the specifications that you want a requirement of the particular mob for the mobile, right? Same way that whenever we conduct a clinical trial, especially in the data management, we write the specification. The specification is nothing but mainly by the programming team does. So where we're gonna talk about we're gonna ensure how much data needs to be collected. Or in the when you collect the data, what are the documents? I mean, sorry, what are the options, or what are the data fields it should have? So it should contain their date of birth or not? Okay, because some regulatory authorities don't allow the date of birth. Should we see whether the patient gender, or should we see patient ethnicity? So based on these specifications, we can able to see that we can collect all the data. But when you write the or when you download the reports, you can only see the specific information that you need. Other than that, when you write the specification, you can only collect the data that you specifically looking from. So they will only ask for those details. Like let's say patient visit. So during the patient visit, they would say we want when did the patient come, like on which day the visit was done. Okay, patient visit date. We also want to see the time. Okay, you will see the time. And we also want to see whether the patient had come or not. Yes or no. Okay, patient came or not. So these all this information will be collected during this process in the specifications. That is the reason. So writing the specification is not very easy, or it takes a lot of time, because it is important, and we would ensure to cover all the information. And then, so we have a data agreement and the screen testings and completion guidelines. Then you have a acceptance testing, which I'll be explaining now. So now you take this process, the study conduct process review. So the first one is the study startup. Now we are seeing for the study conduct. Okay. No, conduct. So what happens in the conduct phase? So now uh, nothing but like you start conducting the clinical trials. That's what, right? Yes, that's true. You start conducting clinical trial. But it is very um, it is very different than startup. Why? Because you done with the study startup process, like you started the clinical trial. Now we'll have the study started, where you start enrolling the patients. When you enroll the patients in a clinical trial, that means it's a study conduct phase. Okay, now good. You conduct the so here is one more thing. Whenever you recruit the patients, that means your also data also has start being updated, right? Now, let's look into this process. Once we start recruiting the patients, we will activate the database. Like we will have the our first patient first in, like our the first patient where we gonna start, where we gonna get the patients. Once you have that date, the date, what we will do, we will activate the database. That means where we can start entering the data. Then once we have the data is available, we will be entering the data. Fine, you entered the data, which is good. Now, what happens to the data that you entered? Or what happens to the data that has been updated in the database? So it will go into the multiple checks. We will not just leave the, okay, just because I've entered the data doesn't mean that we say it's good. No one will trust me. Or no one will say, hey, just because your site entered the data, this is good. No, it's not that. Why? Because whenever the site enters the data, there may be, may not be data with the errors. It may have errors, it may not have an errors. Anything can happen. So, but how do I know that there is no errors in the data? We will only understand once we check the data up to the date. So that means we're gonna check the data with the multiple places. Like for example, we're gonna check with the data um, discrepancy management, and we're gonna look into the discrepancy is nothing but any errors, any mistakes, any missing information, or any data that is not entered completely. And safety data reconciliation, nothing but the data when the data is being entered between two databases. That means when the same data is entered in the two different databases, two different systems, nothing but pharmacovigilance data and adverse event data that is there in the data management. I'll explain the coming session, don't worry. So we will do compare the data, whether data is entered correctly in the both the systems correctly or not. Then vendor reconciliations, and then coding, then query generations, where whenever you find any errors, whenever you find the mistakes, we will generate a query, then we will resolution the query and we'll close the query. So these are the steps that happens in the conduct phase. Now, what are the steps in the closing? Yeah, take note of it. Not pre-log, so yeah, study closeout this one. Okay, good. So now QC checklist, nothing but um everything that what we entered in the data, or everything, um, like let's say for example of study closeout process. Now what happens here, either you complete the study according to the your protocol. For example, your study duration is a 1 year, or your study duration is 6 months, or your study duration is 4 years. So now here you completed your milestones, you completed all your study process, then you close the studies. But there are times that happens you will not close the study, you will not close the study because due to some other reasons, like for example many protocol deviations, or there is no benefit of performing the particular clinical trial, or there is no specific finance, like for example not much money left to conduct the clinical trial, or many discontinued from the particular clinical trial. So a lot of steps that happen, I mean a lot of um, steps that happens in the particular trial, so that's okay. So during this process, what we do, we will ensure that all the data has been completed. All the data has been completed means we will ensure that every uh, um, all the ensure means we will see that all the data has been completed. Whatever the data that has been conducted, we will ensure that um, all the data has been completed, so that there is no pending data. So once your data has been completed, we will go ahead and close the sites. Then we will do the database QC, like if all the data is entered or not, if there is any pending data that has supposed to come, and also that any financial related information that has to be fulfilled. And then we will data extract to the statistics, the information that will be entered. Then there will be audits, then database log archiving, then final QC. So this is how we do the QC process for the QC process for the closeout process. So after this, there is no further steps that we will do, right? So in order to understand that how the startup conduct process happens, it is to give a clarity or given a complete idea on that. Wherever you use, for example, okay, let me give this idea. So especially in the startup process, that we mainly focusing on the regulatory part and preparing the documents. Okay, just a second, I'll show you. So if you see here, we go mainly focusing on the understanding the protocol, then preparing the documents, preparing the databases, preparing the specifications, agreements, and the testing and the guidelines. So startup process mainly focus on the preparing the databases, preparing the documents to go ahead and collect the data from the patients. Whereas the conduct phase mainly focusing on the collection of the data, clean the data, and ensure that no pending information, ensuring that no open queries, ensuring that all the data has been reconciled. Okay, and and the closeout is talking more mainly focus mainly on the data. How do we do the QC part in order to close the databases? So these are the three steps. Now what we do in the coming sessions, we're going to talk about everything that is we're going to talk every each and every step, like how do you do the protocol review and what is the data management plan. And we also going to talk about data management plan and the specifications of everything. So far, any questions? Mhm. Okay, so let me share my screen again. Yeah, you all can see. Yeah. So here, this is a website that I'm coming again. So that is icgcp dot. You all can see my screen again, right? Yeah. So we're gonna talk about let's say we're going to talk about the principle of ICH-GCP. So when you come here, click on here in the ICH-GCP principles, guys. Without these principles, at least 2 to 3 questions will be from this perspective. So here you will find the 12 principles, 12 or 13. Yeah, 12 principles. So all about how a trial will be conducted. So these are the International Conference of Harmonization Guidelines, where you're gonna get in a clarity on the idea on that how we what kind of process or what kind of information that we follow. And like let's say now give an example. Let me give an example of protocol. Mm, Yeah, a well-designed trial, clinical trial should be described in a clear, concise, scientifically sound, and operationally feasible protocol. That means the protocol should contain all the information which describe a clear, concise, and thus scientifically sound. That means whenever I'm talking about the particular clinical trial, like let's say that why I'm using this medication for the obesity or the diabetes, what is the relationship between it, and why should even utilize it? That's one thing. And that means a strong relationship and a strong uh, um, the scientific bond in order to talk about when we talk about the particular process of the particular the disease and objectives and every process. And if you see, a well designed protocol is a fundamental to the protection of the participants and from the generation of the reliable results. That means we just simply don't involve every patient who can participate in the particular clinical trial. It is always about that what kind of trial or what kind of you know information that we collect, so whether we are involving the right patients or not. Then the scientific objectives of trial should be clear, and that means a clear information should be given. The clinical trial protocol is as well as the plans or documents of the protocol, status analysis data, DMP monitoring plan should be clear, concise, operationally feasible, okay, to conduct the particular trial. You see, so that means they're more focusing on the particular clinical trial. You see here, a clinical trial should be subject to an independent review by IRB IEC. A trial should be conducted in compliance with a protocol that received prior IRBC approval. That means your clinical trial should be according to your protocol. However, the protocol should be that received prior IRB IEC in order to conduct the particular the trial. Right, you should have an approval, okay. So that is the reason that I want you all to um have an idea on this. There's so much to read, but you don't have to read all this process. So but if you can remember, it will be good. Otherwise, look, you might face some challenge during the interview. So this will help you during your interview basis. Okay, good. Any questions?